absolute addressing and how to isolate assumptions, and also do a little bit more formatting. So if you want to follow along with me, you can click on the link on the lessons page, lesson 1.4, and make a copy of the spreadsheet. So you can go to File, make a copy, and that'll make a copy of the file in your drive, and you can move it around and rename it if you like. So here we're calculating payroll for a group of employees. So we want to enter in this cell E2, we're going to enter their gross pay. So the gross pay, they're going to get paid time and a half for overtime. So they have their hourly wage, their regular hours, and their overtime hours. So we're going to enter a formula that is their hourly wage times their regular hours plus their hourly wage times their overtime hours times 1.5. So most people get paid time and a half for their overtime hours. So we're going to enter that in for Adams, and then we're going to go ahead and copy that down the column for the remaining employees. So we've got that for everybody else. And we can see that the formula got updated depending on what row it's on. And so now we're going to calculate the employee's withholding tax. And now what we've done down here is we've put the withholding tax, which is 28%, down in cell C11. So if I enter the formula equal to the gross pay times the withholding tax for this first employee, and I hit enter, and I try to copy that down the column, what's going to happen is I'm going to get incorrect values for some of these. And the reason is that while this cell that I entered the formula in is referencing cell C11 for the withholding tax, as I go down the column, I see that because it's using relative addressing, the next cell is referencing cell C12, C13, and so forth. And that's not what we want to have happen. We want all of them to reference cell C11. So this is an example where we want to use absolute addressing. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to go in here and change this to $C, $11. That's going to anchor that address, that reference to the withholding tax. So now, as I copy it down the column, I'll get values that look more reasonable, and I see that they're all, while the gross pay changes as we go down the column, the withholding tax is referencing the same cell. We're going to do the same thing for Social Security tax, or FICA. Again, we're going to refer to the gross pay times the FICA, and here again we want to use the absolute cell reference so that we can copy it down the column and get the correct values. And then the employee's net pay is just going to be their gross pay minus their withholding tax minus their Social Security. And then again, we're going to copy that down the column. So now we have everybody's pay calculated. Now we would like to format these as dollar amounts. So I'm going to go change my hourly wage over here. I'm going to select those, and I'm going to change those to dollar format or currency format. So just by clicking on the little dollar sign on the toolbar, so that looks better. And then notice that the other cells that reference that amount also get updated, and they're using the dollar sign as well, or the currency format as well. I'd also like to calculate some totals here. I want to know the total amount paid for gross pay and withholding tax and so forth. So I'm going to use the sum function. So I can do that by either typing in equal sum, or I can go to the toolbar and I can click on the functions tool and select sum, and it'll type it in there for me. And then I can either type the cell range of cell references in there, or I can drag and select and enter those references. And then here again, if we want to just fill that and copy it across the row, we'll see that we get the amounts for all of the other columns as well. Now, the nice thing about isolating our assumptions down here in the in cell C11 is that if the withholding tax were to change, say to 0.25, all of the other values, notice the withholding tax and everything else, all the other values in our spreadsheet also get updated. I'm going to hit undo and change that back to 28. So now I would like to change this withholding tax and FICA, change the format of those to percent format because those are percentages. And then if I wanted the withholding tax to not be displayed with 2 decimal places, I could go up here and use the decrease decimal tool to change that just to 28%. And then I'm going to format my spreadsheet. I'm going to select all of these cells, select a fill color. I'm going to do a dark blue, and then I'm going to make the font white so it's a little bit easier to see. One of the things that's happening here is that we have some columns that are some labels that are too wide to fit across the column. And so I could widen the columns by clicking and dragging between them, or I can use the text wrapping tool to wrap that text around so that it shows up even when I make these cells a little bit narrower. So the wrap will wrap those around if I want them to. There we go. Overtime hours, I'll make that wrap around, and regular hours. And then probably I would want to center these, all of these fields here. And so I'm going to go ahead and use the center tool to do that. I'm going to also go across here and make a border to emphasize that these are my assumptions. So again, I'm going to fill this with the dark blue and the white. And then if I'd want to, I can copy that format, so I can select that row and use my little format painter, and I can select it. So you can do this with an individual cell, a range of cells, a row, a column, and then I'm going to click that. It'll do the same thing with prepared by. And then I would probably, if you were doing this to submit as a lab assignment, this is just an example, but if you were, then you would type your name here in the cell. So the main ideas here are using the absolute addressing to refer back to a given cell, the withholding tax, and to isolate that assumption so that it only appears once in your spreadsheet, so that you're not typing 0.28 in all of your formulas. You're referring back to the individual cell, and that way you can easily change it. If you would like to, if you have a spreadsheet and you would like to see what the formulas in the spreadsheet look like, you can go to the View menu, and you can do Show Formulas, and that'll let you see the formulas in the cell if you're interested, and you might have to widen the cells a little bit to see all of them. So for this worked example, I'm going to go back and change this, View, and you just check that again to go back to the regular view. So that's it. That's how to isolate your assumptions and how to use absolute cell addressing. Good luck.